What does this have to do with this? I'm John Gever with MedPage Today in Pittsburgh, where these days they have quite a lot in common. Maria Caruso, a choreographer and dancer who leads a contemporary ballet company called Bodiography here, is staging productions with intense medical themes, including heart transplantation and, this month, tissue engineering.
I started off my career in doing rock ballets, actually, and even though I was focusing on the music selections, I was really always had a very thematic approach to creating fuller length works, and I had done a ballet to the Red Hot Chili Peppers about psychological disorders, and at that time I also began to do a little bit more research-based work as a choreographer, which is kind of unusual sometimes. I think a lot of times artists have a tendency to create work based off of assumption or their own thoughts and feelings, and don't often have the opportunities to completely do the research necessary to create a work that has that sense of authenticity. And I was able to work with 3 psychotherapists for the ballet that I did.
Over time, her interest in medical topics for dance brought her into contact with a cardiovascular physician at UPMC, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, whose daughter happened to be one of her dance students.
He had approached me and he had said, I keep noticing that you have this medical undercurrent in all your works, and if you were ever interested in working with the Cardiovascular Institute, I'd be interested in talking about that. And so I thought, this is such a phenomenal opportunity, and I walked in with his group and I said, I want to do a ballet about heart transplantation, and that's kind of how Heart began to evolve. And the idea was that I would be working with the patient group to really portray the patient's experience. And I had the opportunity to watch 2 heart transplants. And so I created this ballet, and I recognized at that point in time that the work itself, by doing that kind of research, the artist had a different response. By having the patients actually involved in the ballet, it really changed. It changed how the art itself impacted the audience, and it was really meaningful. So during the ballet, I actually asked one of the cardiologists, or cardiac surgeons, Robert Kormos. I had asked him to be in the work, as I noticed in surgery they have these beautiful arm movements when they're actually, they're working. So I said, I really would rather have a surgeon come in and portray this role rather than actually have an actor.
UPMC transplant surgeon Robert Kormos did indeed appear on stage in his scrubs at the performance last February called Heart, Function versus Emotion. That experience led Caruso to her new production called 108 Minutes.
After the ballet, he called me and he said, Maria, he said, I'm doing an LVAD implantation and a heart pump. And he's like, do you want to come? Absolutely. I just dropped everything and, headed down to Presby. And, it was very different than the heart transplant. It was really interesting. And, my mind just started working I was thinking about, wow, here we were identifying with the patient's experience, but it's seldom that we identify with the physician, the surgeon, or the scientist behind this amazing scientist. And watching a left ventricular assist device being implanted into somebody's body is pretty phenomenal.
That got her interested in the work going on all around the world in repairing diseased tissue as a topic for a new production. She approached Dr. Alan Russell, director of the McGowan Institute of Regenerative Medicine, which brings together some 240 researchers from UPMC and elsewhere in the University of Pittsburgh to develop new solutions for many human diseases.
So it's really a network of faculty with some facilities that focus in the area of regenerative medicine, which is the concept of accelerating the healing of the body using a whole variety of different tools. It's the world's largest institute for regenerative medicine and probably the largest concentration of researchers, scientists, engineers, and clinicians that are interested in how to do regenerative medicine.
And what are some of the specific projects that you
They really go from the head to the toe. So there are people in the neurosurgery department who are interested in how to use cells to correct deficits in the brain. There's a large group in ophthalmology that's interested in how to restore vision. Coming further down, there's a very large presence in the dental school of researchers in this area. They're interested in bone regeneration, tooth regeneration, and then really literally from the head to the toe. Every organ that you can think of, probably there's someone at the University of Pittsburgh or UPMC that's doing some work figuring out how to regenerate it.
To develop the dancers' moves in the production, Caruso went to some of the researchers with questions that weren't exactly what most scientists are used to fielding. Dr. Stephen Badylak was one of them.
Met with about a half a dozen of us and asked questions like, if you could describe your day in the form of a shape, what would it be? I don't normally think like that. I'm more interested in inductive molecules to recruit stem cells. So she, thinking in an abstract way, and I think she, very cleverly got a lot of ideas and got us excited about the possibility of converting what we think of in medical science into an art form. And once you switch your mind over to think, to sort of think on the same wavelength, the possibilities are pretty endless.
While Dr. Badylak's role was strictly offstage, Dr. Russell is slated to dance a duet with Caruso in 2 performances this month at one of Pittsburgh's big downtown theaters. Russell is approaching his onstage role with some trepidation, but agreed to it for what the art could mean for public appreciation for the science in medicine.
Well, I think to a large extent the world of science and the world of how new medicines are thought of and created is an area that mainly sits in the minds of scientists. We understand it very well, but the public's perception of how science is done is very rarely told in any way other than by a scientist, and when it is, it's glorified in some television show that doesn't really communicate it well. And I think what we realized is that through this ballet, this was a unique form that could use art to tell a story that we felt was important to tell. So that's very exciting.
For her part, Caruso, who is just 30 years old, is already looking ahead to yet another medically themed production.
So I've done psychological disorders, I've done breast cancer awareness, I've done heart awareness, now working on the science aspect, and hoping next season to work on a ballet about muscular dystrophy. And really working to utilize my art or my craft, my talents and gifts and my company's strengths to make really positive change by using art as a vehicle to raise awareness.
In Pittsburgh, I'm John Gever, MedPage Today.
I'm going to turn around this way.